Hello friends and welcome to Edupedia World Videos. This is the part D of chapter 6 and in this topic we will deal with arrays in detail. So here we will learn how to initialize an array, how to access the array elements and what precautions we should adhere to while using arrays in C language. Moreover, we will also learn that how strings are implemented inside C as the character arrays. Okay, so first of all, the definition of an array, just a revision of it. An array is a collection of variables of the same data type. Declaration of an array. So first, it is almost similar to that of a variable. Okay, just like you declare a variable, you declare an array in the exactly same manner, except for the fact that you have to pass the size of the array. So size means that number of elements that are contained in that array. So we know that array is a collection of variables of the same type. So here is the data type, this is the name of the variable, and this is the number of elements in that array. Okay, so this would look like this: int, that is the data type, then number list, which is the name of the variable, and within square brackets we have passed the number of elements or the array size. This is 10. Okay, so now we can access all the variables of this array using the index. So whenever we want to access the variables, we will just pass the index value over here. Like here we have passed 10, so that means that size of the array is 10. So whenever next time we need to pass some value, we will just pass the index, and index for an array in C language begins from 0. So that means the indices are from 0 to n minus 1. Okay, so n is the size of the array. Size of the array in this case is 10. So for this array, the index will be from 0 to 9. Okay, for this array, the indexes will be from 0 to 9. Okay, so coming to the next slide. So you can also initialize the arrays while declaration. Okay, as we have just learned how to declare the arrays, we can also initialize them. What is initialization? Initialization is that we store some default values. Just while defining the array, we can store some default values in that. So all we have to do is int num list. This is just a variable name, this is a data type, then the size of the array, which is 3. So we have initialized 10, 11 and 12 in it. So this 10 is at the index 0 of the array. Okay, 11 is at the index 1 of the array, and 12 is at the index 2. So we have 3 elements, 0, 1 and 2. To access any of these elements, what we have to do is variable name, and then in square brackets we have to pass the index of the array. So first element will be accessed when we pass the index 0 as over here. Okay, and this has been initialized to 10. Similarly, second and third index. Okay, so if you are initializing the array while declaration only, then you can skip giving the size. So even if I do not specify the size 3 over here, C compiler will assume the size to be 3 based on the number of the values that you have passed in the initializer. Okay, these are comma separated values passed in the parenthesis. So if I have passed 3 values, 10, 11 and 12, and I have, see here I have not specified anything, no white space, nothing. So int num list and square brackets without any white space or value equal to, in parenthesis, 10, 11 and 12. So this will automatically indicate the compiler to initialize this array with a size of 3, and this will be index 0, 1 and 2 respectively. Okay, so this statement, this one and this statement are exactly the same thing for a C compiler. Okay, so we can also initialize all the elements to a particular value, say 0, by the following statement. Okay, now what does this statement do? Suppose we have 10 elements in an array. So it is always not possible to write one value for each element, and moreover we can follow this shortcut when we have to initialize all the values, all the elements to a same value. So generally the initial value of all the elements would be same. When you actually do practical programming, you will always encounter some situations in which the initial value is the same. Like in this case, and in most of the cases, the initial value is 0. So you just pass in parenthesis. You have to first include a white space, then write the value from which you want to initialize all the elements, and then again a white space, and then parenthesis closed. Okay, so this will declare an integer array with 10 elements and all initialized to 0. All right. Accessing the elements of the array. So this we have although done briefly earlier, but just in a more detail, that the elements of an array can be accessed using the array index. Okay, index is the number of element. Actually what index specifies, it gives us the number of element to be accessed. In C language, array indices begin from 0 and extend up to the size of array minus 1. So if the size of the array is n, the indices will begin from 0 and end at n minus 1. For example, for an array int number list 10, indices are from 0 to 10 minus 1. Okay, 10 minus 1 is 9. So indices are from 0 to 9. Okay, accessing the elements of an array, this is the continuation of it. The first element of an array can thus be accessed as follows. So to access the first element, you have to pass the index of the first element. Indexes begin at 0, so the first element will be accessed by passing 0 in the square brackets just after the name of the array. So I am doing what? Number list in square bracket 0 is equal to 99. So this means that now 99 will get stored at the first element of the array. Similarly, numList 1 is equal to 100 will mean that 100 will get stored at the second element of the array. So to access the nth element of an array, the index that you have to pass is n minus 1. Okay, so remember this core rule, thumb rule, that to access the nth element we have to pass n minus 1 as an index. Like to access the 10th element or the last element of this array whose size is 10, we have to pass n minus 1, that is 9 as an index. Now a word of caution, because arrays in C, what the thing is that compiler is not very closely coupled. It does not keep checks on your data and how you access your data. So if I declare an integer array with a size of 10 elements, okay, and now for 10 elements the indexes will be from 0 to 9, right? Now in case I pass an index of 10 in this array, this will mean that I am actually trying to access the 11th element. Now 11th element is not existing in this array. Now what will happen is that compiler will try to access a memory location which is just beyond the scope of the array. So suppose in memory the array is positioned like this. Okay, this is a logical view of how array is positioned inside a memory. So these are various elements, okay, from 0 to 9th element. Now this is the first element having an index of 0, and this is say the 10th element having an index of 9. Now suppose I try to access the element at an index 10, which will lie somewhere here inside the memory beyond the actual limit of the array. So our array ends over here, whereas we are trying to access an element which is outside the scope of the array. This will cause an illegal memory access. Okay, now C compiler does not stop you from accessing the memory illegally. Okay, it is unlike the other high level languages like Java and all. We must remember that C is a middle level programming language, so it will allow you to access the memory that way. But In case the operating system detects that you are illegally accessing some memory that either belongs to operating system or some other process which you should not, then it will send a segmentation fault signal, that is a signal to your process, and your process will be killed by the operating system. So you have to remember while using arrays that you never surpass the index, which is the limit of the array, which is greater than the size of the array. String is a character array in C language. There is no particular data type for storing string variables. So how string variables are stored? Strings are stored in form of character arrays in C language. So strings are implemented using character arrays. A character array is a string only if it is terminated by a null character, or this is known as a null terminated character array. So a null terminated character array is a string. What do you mean by null termination? First of all, you need to remember that this null character has an ASCII value of 0. We have discussed about the ASCII values previously also. These are American Standard Code for Information Interchange. So most of the characters that we encounter, that is A to Z and 0 to 9, are allocated some codes in decimal form or hexadecimal form. So 0 is the code which is allocated to null character. So at the end of your string you should have a null character. Only then your compiler will assume this character array to be a string, because your compiler will start reading your string from its 0th location and it will continue till it encounters a null character. Suppose this null character is not there, your compiler will keep on accessing this string and it will surpass the memory location of the actual variable and then cause some illegal memory exception, just like index overrun. So we have to avoid this while our programming. Okay. This is already we have discussed. C compiler always searches for the null character while accessing the strings to find where the string is ending. In case it does not find the null character, it continues to access beyond the size of the character array. This will cause an illegal memory access and your program will eventually be killed by the operating system. This thing is commonly known as segmentation fault. Okay. So preventing such segmentation faults. So first thing is always remember that you have to initialize a string variable with an empty string. How can you do that? Just this way: char mystring 20 is equal to double quotation marks and semicolon. So this is an empty string and all your 20 elements 0 to 19th index inside my string are initialized with null string, which is all our \0 now. Okay, so first thing is this. Now what happens, suppose you have a string variable or a character array which has total 20 memory locations. So 20 elements are there inside this character array, and this is your 0th index and this is your 20th index. Now suppose over here somewhere we store a word which is in 5 characters in length. Okay, so we store some word which is 5 characters in length. We store A, B, C, D and E. Okay, so this is the word which is 5 characters in length and we have stored this in this array. Now if we have not initialized this string to null character to null, what will happen is that this might contain some garbage location, because C compiler does not initialize your memory locations to 0 by default in all the cases. So this might have some garbage values over here. So it is possible that there is no null character over here, and your compiler, when accessing this string, will try to find out a null character, and it might pass beyond this limit of 20 characters and thus cause an illegal memory exception. In case you have initialized it to null, that means that all the characters are initially set to \0. So when you copy a 5-letter word, only your first 5 letters are overwritten, rest all remain \0. So that means the 6th character at the index of 5 will already be null. So your compiler will always spot a null character over here, and it will stop accessing your string from there onwards, and thus preventing any illegal segmentation faults. Okay, now keep a check on your code so that you never access any integer greater than the size of the array, any index greater than the size of the array itself. Now these, how to apply these checks, we will learn when we do conditional statements, but for the timing just remember this point, that you can always keep a check while accessing the arrays, that you never pass a index which is greater than the size of the array. Okay, so this was the chapter on basics of arrays in C. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope you continue to watch basics of programming in C language.